Okay, so this comic is going to be a big deal going into 2024. Not only is it headlining the year for Marvel, but it will no doubt be the most popular comic a part of the new Ultimate Universe. But you guys aren't here for a statistical history lesson, you guys are here for everything that you need to know about the new Ultimate Spider-Man comic coming in 2024, starting in January. So there are going to be 5 categories that I'm going to outline in this video, so let's start with the origin. This book will be written by Jonathan Hickman and will be penciled by Marco Checchetto? I'm not good with names. I'm really not good with names. The book will follow an older version of Peter Parker that currently looks like this and will take place at the start of his Spider-Man career. Now you'll notice that I said start of his Spider-Man career, and Peter already looks like he's aged like 20 years. Man looks like he's in his mid-40s. The reason for this is because during a book called Ultimate Invasion, which is also being written by Hickman, the Ultimate Universe is basically being reinstated, which is the reason as to why the Ultimate Universe is going to get a reboot in the first place. However, in the case of Spider-Man, an evil version of Reed Richards called the Maker decided to remove the spider that bit Peter from the timeline, meaning that during his high school years, Peter Parker never actually became Spider-Man, which means that this reincarnation of the ultimate version of Spider-Man, he is going to become Spider-Man later down the line in his 30s or maybe even close to 40s, which is really interesting. Like, we've never seen this before. But let's move on to the second category of this video, characters. Who is going to be his supporting cast? This book will interestingly actually have Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson be married. In fact, she'll be known as Mary Jane Parker, and they will have 2 kids, Richard and May Parker. But how do we know their names? Basically, a sketch revealing the concept imagery for some of the main characters, including Peter, MJ, and the kids, was revealed in a promotion for the book, in which it revealed the names of the 2 kids. The boy, Richard, will be named after Peter's deceased father, Richard Parker, who left Peter when he was around 8 years old. And the girl, May, will be named after Aunt May, who, according to the official trailer for the book, will be dead in this universe, but more on that later. Another major character in this universe will be Norman Osborn. However, he just won't be a major character, he will actually be a superhero in this universe. And he'll be appearing on the scene during the same time in which Peter gets bit by the spider. We know this for 2 reasons. Number 1, Jonathan Hickman actually confirmed this himself, and also the official synopsis for issue 2 of the book, which comes out in February, reads this. The most surprising Spider-Man story of the 21st century continues. Spider-Man faces his first supervillain. J. Jonah Jameson's quest to uncover who is really pulling the strings of this new Ultimate Universe leads to a shocking revelation, and New York City welcomes its newest hero, the Green Goblin. Now, more on what the early part of that synopsis might actually mean later, but first let's talk about the Green Goblin. The Goblin being a hero is something that us fans know all too well from the recent run of Amazing Spider-Man comics, in which Norman Osborn became an entity known as the Gold Goblin and would go on to help Peter Parker in his battles around the city. Now, the context of Norman Osborn being a good guy in the main 616 universe is a little weird because, you know, he kind of killed Spider-Man's girlfriend. But apart from that, this concept of Norman and Spider-Man actually being partners actually works quite well. And it's actually one of those things that Zeb Wells, I think, wrote pretty well in his run on the Amazing Spider-Man comics. If it wasn't for the past and the history that these 2 characters shared in the same series, then it wouldn't have been all too bad. Which is exactly why I'm really excited for the Ultimate Comics, where they are going to bring Norman Osborn in as a fresh hero and one that hasn't had a villainous past with Spider-Man before. Another character that we are going to be encountering throughout the series, as the synopsis mentioned, is J. Jonah Jameson, and by proxy the Daily Bugle or some variation of that outlet. From the trailer and synopsis of the 2nd issue, it seems that Jameson is going to be relatively unchanged from what we know about his character in other adaptations. He's going to be running a news agency, and he's going to be trying to break the latest story. Now let's move on to the 3rd category, which is villains. The synopsis also suggests a mysterious villain pulling the strings behind New York, which is potentially the main conflict that will drive the series. However, there has only been one villain confirmed to us that we know is for definite going to be appearing in this series, and he actually appeared in the official trailer for the book as well, and that is none other than Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin. The cameo that Wilson Fisk did have in the trailer for the book showcased a fight between him and Spider-Man. And judging by the way that this synopsis pictures this new villain, I'm willing to bet that Wilson Fisk is the one behind the scenes pulling the strings, because it just sounds so much like Wilson Fisk and sounds so much like his character that he would be the one behind the scenes pulling the strings to the city in various different ways, whether it's the Magic crime family, whether it's, you know, running for mayor and controlling the city from the inside. It just sounds like Kingpin written all over it. And the Kingpin has been a staple of Spider-Man's rogues gallery, especially in his early years, for a very long time. And I also imagine if Spider-Man didn't appear on the scene until later, this would have given the Kingpin more time to sprout out and expand his criminal empire, making him a bigger force for Spider-Man to overcome in this new series. But something that's also very interesting to mention is that the same sort of storyline was also executed in the original Ultimate Spider-Man series by Bendis and Bagley during the early 2000s. During the series, Fisk would be pulling the strings on the underground criminal activity, pulling Spider-Man in all sorts of directions. It's also interesting to note that Uncle Ben's killer in the original Ultimate Universe did have ties to the Kingpin as well. So whether that's been changed or unchanged, we're just going to have to wait and see. And also with Aunt May being dead in this universe, does that mean Kingpin might have a link to that? Who knows? Now let's move on to the fourth category, which is going to be the major storylines. What are the major storylines going to be in this new Ultimate Universe? And let's say 20 issues into the series, what kind of storylines can we expect to be playing out? As we mentioned, the Kingpin storyline will be a huge part of the series and will probably encompass a massive part of the conflict driving the series forward. However, another big story that will probably be explored is the repercussions of Aunt May's death. It was teased within the trailer that Aunt May wouldn't be with us in this universe, and the fact that they are showing it implies that it will have a big impact on Peter and the lesson that he'll probably end up learning in this universe. Remember that since Peter didn't actually have his powers during his high school years, the whole great power, great responsibility story didn't really happen the same way that it probably should have. Meaning that the Great Responsibility arc didn't really happen in the conventional way that we know of. So it's entirely possible that Aunt May could have something to do with Peter's responsibility arc in this series, and her death possibly could be directly affected by Peter becoming Spider-Man in his later years. The third major storyline actually relates to the Green Goblin. So it's no secret that the Goblin is one of Spider-Man's greatest enemies, but in this universe, as we mentioned, he's actually going to be a good guy. However, not all hope is lost for those of you who want him to be a villain, because it's very likely that at some point down the line, we will get a hero to villain arc with Norman, meaning that Spider-Man and the Goblin will likely have to face off at some point. And let's be honest, if they're introducing the Goblin this early on in the series as a hero, it's very likely that he's going to be some kind of final boss come 20-30 issues down the line. Now, the fourth major storyline that will play out is Peter and his work life. A lot of the concept and promo images that have been revealed for the series that include Peter reveal him in a very occupational uniform. And it's entirely possible that in this universe he also still could be working for J. Jonah Jameson, like some kind of photographer or reporter, but it's also very possible that he looks like he could be a teacher as well. I just want to mention that his occupation has not been confirmed as of the recording of this video, so it's entirely possible that this could sway either way. However, based off the evidence and based off the art that we have got from the book, it seems that Peter is in his work uniform a hell of a lot of the time. And the fifth and final story that I'd like to talk about is slightly more speculation than confirmation, but it's to do with Peter's kids. You see, a massive part of Spider-Man's character is the balance between Peter Parker and Spider-Man, as we were mentioning with his work life. And since Peter has kids, him being the wall crawler is going to have some lasting impact on his children and his relationship with MaryJane Watson in one way or another. However, at this point in time, there's nothing to suggest any sort of disruption between any of their relationships. However, it's a Spider-Man comic, it's probably going to happen. And the fifth and final category that I want to talk about is other heroes that could potentially show up in the series. Now, since this is a brand new Ultimate Universe, there is a very big likelihood that we could potentially see the Avengers showing up in this comic. There's a good chance that we might be able to see the Fantastic Four, some of the X-Men. There's even a chance that we might get to see Black Panther show up in this comic as well. But I think most interestingly, we possibly might be seeing other Spider-Men. Now, the reason for this is because a few variant covers for the series were released, showing Peter in the symbiote costume, showing Ben Reilly's Sensational Spider-Man costume, and also Spider-Man 2099's costume as well. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to be in the series, and they just could be variant covers, and it's entirely possible that they are just variant covers, and it's that, and it's nothing else. But also, I think it's worth exploring the idea that Peter is so late to become Spider-Man that so many other things in so many other universes across the multiverse have probably already happened. So there could be a chance that potentially if the multiverse is somehow involved, and also since Ultimate Invasion kind of does deal with the multiverse, there is a chance that it could be dealing with the multiverse, then Spider-Man 2099 and Ben Reilly Spider-Man from different universes could also show up. But that's just a mad theory created by me and some of the fans that have just speculated on this book. And that's pretty much everything you need to know about Hickman's new Ultimate Spider-Man run. You are now ready for the new book in January 2024. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, and peace.